Hello everyone, welcome back to Sonic Boom Goofs. Today we'll be taking a look at Episode 6, Fortress of Squalitude, so let's get right into it. So the episode starts off with Eggman going through his mail, but as he does so, his upper lip clips through his mustache in kind of a weird way. When he finds a letter of interest, he hands it to Orbat for him to read. Now take a look at the text on the letter. Notice how it's left aligned? Well, when Orbat is holding it, the text is mirrored. Of course, Orbat is seeing it correctly as he's looking at the other side, so the real goof here is that the texture shows through to the back of the paper when the back should have been given a blank texture. This goof can also be seen when Eggman holds the letter. The letter informs Eggman that his lair could be featured in a magazine, so he instructs Orbat and Cubot to tidy up the place before the photographer's assistant arrives. But when Eggman walks in as Orbat and Cubot are polishing his boots, his mustache is shrunken. One of his possessions that Eggman is very careful in making sure is positioned just right is his Bunsen burner, but when Eggman and the photographer's assistant are talking next to it, it appears to be missing in one of the shots. So the photographer's assistant is unimpressed with Eggman's lair, but gives him a week to make improvements. We then cut to the beach where Amy is planning a dinner for her friends, but I'd like to talk for a moment about what she says here.
My summer-themed seat cushions with floral upholstery that complements each guest's natural coloring are ready.
First of all, I find it strange that there are only 4 seats, even though there are obviously 5 people here, especially since there appears to be 5 glasses on the table. Second of all, Amy says that the seat cushions complement each guest's natural coloring. By definition, a complementary color is a color that is the opposite of the color that it is complementing. If we assume that the missing seat is Amy's since she's technically the host rather than a guest, then if we take Sonic, Knuckles, Tails, and Stick's natural colors and invert them, the seat cushions should be orange, cyan, and 2 shades of blue. Instead, the cushions appear to be red, pink, and 2 shades of green. Although, it is possible that by complements, Amy simply meant that the colors look good with each guest's natural coloring. Since we can't say for certain that the number of seats or the cushion colors are 100% goofs, let's just count them both as half goofs, thus increasing the counter by 1.
I dug a trench around the picnic table and filled it with broken glass.
Amy should be standing right there next to the table. And when the camera switches back to Amy, the shadow on the ground behind her belongs to Sticks. The fact that this goof is even possible further supports the theory that I've proposed in past episodes that this show is rendered in layers.
Sonic, how are you doing on those fruit drinks?
The lawn chair's leg doesn't meet up with its shadow. Also, if Sonic is really lying in this chair, I feel like we should be able to see him at least a little bit. Then a few shots later, Amy and Sticks appear to be floating.
Click.
Similar to Amy a few moments ago, Sticks is missing when she should be standing right next to the table. Then we go goof-free for about 20 seconds until Sticks goes missing again. Now here's a good one. I know I've pointed out a lot of random floating objects in this series so far, but this grill has got to be floating at least 18 inches off the ground.
I just want to hire Amy to redo my lair.
Stick's seashell is gone now. Even if she dropped it, it's nowhere to be seen on the ground either. And in this shot, that grill seems to be nowhere to be found. I mean, it was floating before. Maybe it just kept floating up and up into the stratosphere. Now, if we take a look at this shot, not only are Tails and this rock floating, but the objects on the table appear to be overlapped by the water on the horizon. Back at Eggman's lair, he and Amy begin to discuss redecoration plans. Now notice that they've only walked a short distance down the hallway, with just one of these red lighting installations between them and the door. But after the camera looks at Amy just for a second, they've now warped much further down the hallway with 2 of those lighting installations behind them. Now during the redecoration montage, we see Amy spreading some flower petals on the floor, but there's a masking error around her shoe. And just a moment later, the petals are gone. The contents of the basket she's holding are also much different. There are fewer flowers, and there now appears to be an Easter egg? The ties on the handle also used to be black, but now they're brown. Then, after Amy turns the laser lights on, the picture of Eggman that sits on the shelf behind the couch is blacked out. Later on, the photographer's assistant returns to re-inspect the lair. But take a look at Amy here. This is obviously supposed to be her blinking, but it seems they forgot to make her eyelids visible. So instead, her eye divider just reaches down and touches her muzzle a few times. And while the assistant is looking at the My Little Pony picture, the picture seems to get progressively higher in each subsequent shot. Now, for a goof that was pointed out by the Sonic Wiki, when Amy attempts to leave, Eggman drops a cage over top of her, even though the bottom of the cage appears to be solid. The wiki also makes mention of some characters' irises being darker than usual in some shots, but I felt this was too ambiguous to label as an actual goof. Realizing that Amy's been gone a little too long, Sonic and the others decide to go check on her. But when Sonic knocks on Eggman's door, his fist doesn't cast any sort of shadow, creating an unnatural lack of depth. And it's a little difficult to say for certain in this lighting, but I believe Sonic's arm is completely absent here. It's nothing but a glove and sports tape. After Eggman denies Team Sonic entrance, they find another way into his lair.
It's us! We snuck in through a sewer pipe.
Interestingly similar to that one scene from AOSTH that was being memed a few years back. Anyways, when Sonic approaches Amy's cage, no sewage can be seen on him, which, judging by this other shot, should be visible at this angle. Then in the very next shot, the wall is no longer broken. When Amy steps out of the cage, her shoe clips slightly into it. And if you look closely around the edges, she appears to have been roughly masked in front of the cage. Now look closely at Stick's right shoe in this shot. When she blinks, a shadow appears on top of her shoe for 9 frames. You may have also noticed that she's magically clean in this shot. And in the next shot, Sonic is magically clean once again. Now reaching the home stretch, when Eggman's door gets broken down and he starts to turn around, his cup suddenly clips from his hand back onto the saucer. You can also see Eggman's mustache through the tip of his nose. And as the door falls over, it also appears to be translucent. After a fight sequence, Tails grabs the MLP picture to deliver the final blow. But this wall didn't have a square pattern before, nor a curtain on the left side. And finally, when the photographer shows up to find the lair in wreckage, she and her assistant float slightly as they walk in. So there you have it. That made for about 39 goofs in episode 6. I apologize that the editing and overall execution of this series has been pretty inconsistent from episode to episode so far. I've just been feeling it out and trying to figure out what works best. I'm pretty happy with the production flow this time, so maybe the style will be more consistent from here on out. Either way, until next time, thanks for watching.